Right. Hi there, folks, and welcome back to another WP-Tonic monthly workshop where we cover all the aspects of WordPress technology, the best plugins, and advice to freelancers and to agency owners. Once again, I've got one of the sponsors of the show, of the WP-Tonic podcast, and also a personal friend that has, to say he has a ton of experience in running WordPress agencies, and a successful one would be a slight understatement. But I'm going to let my guest Vito introduce himself, and then we're going to go into a really important subject: bidding fundamentals, how to correctly and successfully price web design and development projects. I've got some my own strong views based on my own experience, but like I say, Vito's even got more experience than me. Vito, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. It's good to be back, Jonathan. I'm Vito. I'm the founder of Atarim. I started building websites as a freelancer about 15 years ago. From there, I started building an agency here in London, in the UK. Pretty quickly, we got to six figures in revenue and then to a team of 12. Building more than 800 projects along the way. So I sent out a bunch of proposals. With today's topic, I sent out a few thousands of proposals to just get those 800 projects through the door, and from there we kind of built a product that helped us internally collaborate and improve the productivity with our own clients. That is what evolved into Atarim, which is where I am the founder of at the moment. Through that experience, I actually this allowed me to, over the past couple of years, to work with more than 5,000 agencies and freelancers from all over the world to learn how they do things. And I'm going to share, I'm going to try and share some of my experience, but I'm also going to share a lot of the experience that I learned from other folks in our industry and how they're dealing with these situations. I'm also going to share some of the false beliefs that I believe that our industry has around pricing and around how to basically close the deal, which is what we're going to be talking about today.
That's great. So let's start off. This is probably going to be about 45 minutes. We really are going to go into some depth about this subject. I received some questions from the WP-Tonic tribe and the Facebook group, and these are what I'm going to be putting to Vito. So let's just start off with an opening question. Let's try and build a landscape. What do you personally feel are some of the key fundamental things that freelancers and WordPress agency owners, misconceptions that they have around bidding and bidding fundamentals, Vito?
Right. So when it comes to bidding, that kind of puts me in a feeling that we're talking about trying to outbid, right, someone else. So where we're trying to win the proposal over someone else's proposal. So what I would suggest is try to get to a position where you're not even sitting in this position in the first place. You want to make sure that when people are approaching you, they're approaching you because they know that you can do something that others can't. And then it's never about the price. If that is the case, it's more about, can you fit them into your schedule with the price that you're asking for. So basically it's kind of flipping this concept on its head, compared to, it's not about bidding for the lowest or the highest price point. It's about, if you can position yourself and fix your own messaging to allow people to see that what you're offering is superior to anyone else on the market, really.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I just want to put this landscape in front of you and get your response to it. I think personally, and this is arguable, and I'll be interested in, like I say, what you feel about this. I personally feel it's important to have some pricing structures on your website that give some indication of what you can do for people at what price point. Otherwise, I think you can have a lot of discussions with people and their budgets are totally
Right.
impossible to work with. That's
I
number
agree.
one. Number two is I feel there's there's a lot of talk uh, around experts in this area, and they say, Vito, that you need to sell consultancy. You just shouldn't be a service provider. You need to be seen as the expert. And I partially agree with that and don't partially agree with that because I think it depends on price point. Because I think, let's say you start off, if you get a client that's only looking for a logo, you should be able to have a quick discussion with them, give them a verbal idea about price, and maybe a one-page contract, and probably get all your money up front. Um, if they want a one-page landing page, you should be able to do the same.
Right.
If you're talking about projects, and this might vary, I would say anything depending on where you are, projects over $3,000 or over $5,000, you might be talking about some discovery. But I think for any kind of paid discovery, you're talking between 10 and 30. And any project between 30 and 100,000, you're probably dealing with a much more deeper discovery process, and the client is going to ask for other materials or has expectations, which is probably outside this particular discussion, but we can discuss it in another, hopefully, workshop. What's your initial response to
Right.
what I've just said?
So let's break this down to a few parts because there's a lot of interesting points in what you just mentioned. So first of all, around how to mention the pricing, there's a good rule of thumb in digital marketing, regardless to website or basically selling online, that anything below $2,000 you can put on the website. If it's above $2,000, you want to get them on a call. But you wanna make sure that you don't get the people that are asking, let's build Facebook for $500, right? Because they are a lot of them are out there. So what we did is, on the intake form, when they click to book a call with us, we literally asked for the budget. So there was like a drop down with a range, and if it was, and there was like for us the minimal budget was £3,000. So if it was under £3,000, it was the first, the first option on this drop down was under £3,000, and then you add like ranges all the way to 50K plus, and then if someone chose under £3,000, then they got a very fast email that said that maybe this is that we're not the right people for them, because we just didn't want to deal with those smaller things. Now that is not the case with existing customers, and there is a big difference there. The initial project, we wanted to take someone that is willing to invest, and that is because you don't want someone nickel and diming you on everything else, not on the initial project, but for the 5 years that come after. That is really what I always kept in mind. Not the first part, but all of the relationship that would follow. So the first 3K is basically the seriousness fee that you're willing to invest in yourself, in your business, and then we're gonna come along for the ride. Now that's part one, but we didn't have like pricing tables or anything like this, just because the pricing point was above 2K. But if we had something below, then it would be on the website 100%. If we would have a WAS, or let's say we would sell like a service of 1 day websites, that I see that a lot of people are successfully doing this over the past couple of years, then then great. Like 500, $700, $1,000, and you get a website in a day. That's definitely should be on the website as an offer. um, but it's completely different marketing. It's completely different mindset. The idea here with an agency or premium agency is that you want to build up the authority to the level that you can charge the amounts that you're asking for, and that is not going to happen from just like dropping something on a landing page and someone finding you on Google. That has to happen through conversation, sometimes a few of them. Now, the other part that you mentioned was around those different price points and how to tackle those items. So what we did is we actually tried to standardize complex projects, just from the realization and just from being burnt with big projects that I've done in the past that got us, that we scoped the whole thing out. And the scoping process can be like, as you're saying, it's like it can be days sometimes, just to scope everything out. It's a massive, massive project. But even more than that, no one knows what the project is gonna become when you're first starting off. And I even see this in my own product now. We come up with a feature idea, or there's a feature request from a user. We have a discovery session. We call them like the workshops. And then as you're starting to build, you figure out, oh, it would be really cool to have something that does this along the way. Oh, you know what? It's actually going to be very helpful if we don't do it like that, if we flip it and we do it the other way, and that is going to allow us to do something in the future that we just thought about now. We're not going to do it now, but if we change something slightly, it will unlock possibilities in the future. So unless you're actively building, it's very hard to figure out these things. That's why companies pay a significant part of their budget on R&D. It's not just like one session of discovery, it's years of discovery to build a product. So what we did is we every time that I had a call with a client that came up and asked for the next Facebook, or let's say something more realistic, they wanted for like a membership website, or they wanted like a marketplace, some stuff that are a little more complex than the basic business site. I pushed to the MVP straight away. So I didn't try to go for those 20K, 50K projects from day one, because I knew that it would become a nightmare later on. And I don't know the customer. I don't want to get into an engagement of 50K with someone that I don't know about, and I don't know if he's going to end up paying the whole thing. I don't know what's going to be the relationship a month from now, let alone 4 months from now, as we're still like in deep into the project. So I just want to get the first project out of the way as quickly as possible, and that's when I came up with the concept of the MVP. Every time someone came up with a huge idea, all right, that's great. Let's start with an MVP. We're going to start with something that is going to be pretty modest, but it's going to allow us to go to the market in 2 months, 3 months tops, from the initial discussion. Then we can keep building, and I think that's one of the advantages of WordPress, that it's modular. You're not stuck with the initial thing that you did. You can always bolt on other stuff to it, or revise certain sections, or even completely rebuild certain sections once you have some user feedback and you see what people care about. That is what I would sell. I used to sell to our potential customers as well. That I believe I know what you need. You believe you know what you need, but until we put this in real life situations in front of the market, we don't really know. Let's let the market decide. So let's scope it out quickly, build something out, and then we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's great. And that was a kind of I haven't. You touched this in our last workshop, and but I had forgotten your concept of a minimum viable build out.
Yeah.
Is I haven't heard too many people use that methodology
And I'll
actually.
tell you why. And this is a pretty interesting. I talked about those false beliefs in our industry. The reason why you don't see many people do this is because we get distracted by the large amounts, or by the initial large amounts. Oh my God, I closed the 50K deal. Oh my God, I closed the 100K deal. But in reality, getting a 100K deal is getting someone that is going to pay you 8K a month, right? That's 100K deal per year. It's not even like the end of the project. So if you can build it out to a place where you're building that relationship with the client, you can definitely get to these amounts. You're just not gonna see them. You're not gonna get a contract that says 100K straight away, or you might. There's some agencies that do this. I'm not saying that they don't, but that wasn't my model. I preferred to get the first project done and then get them into, like, all right, we need a dedicated resource that is going to keep working with you and keep building this out. There's going to be a retainer fee of £3,000 to £4,000 a month, and then we can really take things to the next level and accelerate you with someone that is on your side. And then we kind of created sprints, and we always took the agile approach instead of building for 1 year and releasing. I think that's really kind of insane in today's world, to wait a year to release a product, to work on something for a full year before you actually bring this to market. It needs to be like super quick. Speed to market beats perfection every time of the day.
Right. I think that was fantastic. I'm going to, because I've been looking at the questions and I think there's 3 questions and they're all linked together. So we're going to look now. I think these 3 questions, they really are around the area of a project between $10,000 and $30,000, right?
Okay.
Which a small WordPress, small, medium-sized WordPress agency, or a power freelancer that have resources available can do a 10 to 30,000 job.
Right.
Now, I one of the questions is what your feelings around contingency fee, and what a contingency fee is, folks, is if you underbid, and underbidding is rampant in this industry, underbidding, because you feel by underbidding, unless you've made the choice that you think there's a long-term relationship with this client and you need to pay the rent that month, so you need that job, right? So I'm not talking about those circumstances, but in general, underbidding is rampant in this industry. And what normally happens, Vito, when somebody underbids or doesn't do the things that we're going to talk about, they go back to the client and they want extra money.
Right. I had to do this a few times.
Right? And they want extra money again. And every time you go back to a client and ask for outreach, that's what I call it, outreach, extra payment, you'll find that relationship gets more and more difficult.
True.
Right? And it can become, I feel that you maybe got one of these that you could get away with. When you try the second time, I think you're going to be in difficult territory, right, with the ongoing relationship with the client.
Yeah, 100%.
So to cover that, but it is linked to the other points I asked for, between this $10,000 and $30,000. I have a contingency fee in the contract saying if new things turn up that weren't covered in the scope of the proposal, that I have the ability to come back and charge extra, which is normally between 15 and 20% of the contractual price of the project, right? Now, but it's also linked between projects between 10 and 30,000 that I normally, of a project of that size, ask for paid discovery.
You asked for pay discovery for these
Yes,
projects?
I
Okay.
do with a project between 10 and 30,000, because otherwise, but I normally do get pushback.
Right.
I normally always get pushback, and then I respond, well, do you want me just to do a swag for you? And the
Right.
client looks at me and says, what's a swag? I say, well, do you want me to give you a scientific wild ass guess? Which is basically, which is different to a wag. A wag is just a
Ballpark.
wild ass guess.
Yeah.
But the reason why I say it's a swag is it's based on my experience. So
Right.
it's not a total wag, a wild ass guess. It's a scientific wild ass guess based on my experience. So that normally gets a laugh.
Yeah.
And then it
That's a good
kind of
one.
opens their eyes to why I want it's best to pay paid discovery. Well, I've just put a lot of stuff to you. I've just put a lot of. So, what's your thoughts, first of all, about a cons around a contingency fee? What's your views around paid discovery? And do you like my swag, scientific wild ass guess remark?
First, I love the swag concept. Right, let's start with the contingency fee. So we also had this in the contract that if we would go off of the scope of the project, then there might be additional fees, and we can charge you for these additional requests. Um, Also, I had 20% in the budget that they didn't know about. That was my
Oh,
contingency fee. So that was like extra profit that would allow me to throw candies all over the party. You know what I mean? So when we were going through the project and they said, "Oh, I actually forgot to tell you, but maybe we can do this one and maybe we can do that one." So I could throw these candies like, "Okay, cool, you got it. I should charge you for this, but I'm not." Type of thing. And then when it comes and when you say yes a few times, it's very easy to say no as well. If you say no from the get-go and you're just like, oh my god, this guy is so rigid, I don't want to work with him for years. Because again, everything that we did was with that mindset of like, how can we build that relationship forward, realizing that the profit doesn't usually happen, or almost always the profit doesn't happen on the front end, it happens on the back end, on those additional services, on those additional builds. Like we talked about last time, when you build a website of 10 pages, you would charge $2,000, let's say, for example. But if you build a landing page, you would charge 400 for one page, right? After you already have everything ready. So the profit is really happening on the back end. So was my kind of a take on this contingency fee. And what I did is I used this clause. I never liked to kind of point out clauses in the contract. I'm not a lawyer. It's not about this. It's not the type of relationship that I wanted to build with our customers. We wanted to serve them. We didn't want to hold a piece of paper against them. We were. Oh, I always told my team that we're on the same side as them. We're not in front of them. So instead of telling them, I'm going to charge you for this as per clause 14-C, of the contract agreement of the agreement. So instead of that, we told them, yeah, but this is gonna be a little more work. So let's not do that. Let's keep that for stage 2. And
so
that
it's kind of linked to your previous concept of the minimum viable
Yeah,
project.
just everything that I could push to later, I did, because I just wanted to get the project out as quickly as possible. That's really, Jonathan. No matter how you look at it, it's the right thing to do. There's no justification to keeping a client waiting for his business to open for 6 months or a year. It's crazy. It's really
Right.
is. It's
Now,
you know
let's, and it must have happened to you.
what
Now,
that I
what
had to
what
go
what
back.
I'm what I'm about to
Yeah, go on.
outline to you because I totally understand where you're coming from, the minimum viable product and how it fit it in with our today's workshop, right?
Right.
But let's say you had a client who really feel, or they feel they know what they want, and they don't. You might feel that there's a minimum viable product situation there, but they've got a long list of specifications, and you've given them some advice about it would be best to build a minimum viable product. But let's say it's fallen on deaf ears a little bit,
So
right?
I would tell you, I think we know where you're going. If they come with a pre-made a request list, then they did the discovery with someone else. Maybe they
Yeah,
paid him.
they
Maybe
have.
they got it.
They've come in with a
Yeah,
RE, yeah.
they already came prepared. Cool, fine.
Right.
Let's price it out and get to
Yeah.
work.
So that's where I wanted to get this conversation. So you're at that. Do you then, in those scenarios, do you then ask for paid discovery?
No.
And if you do, how did you deal with pushback?
Right. So I never went down this concept of asking for paid discovery. I know that people have started doing this over the past couple of years. Maybe some have been doing this for longer, but it was a concept that was foreign to me. I didn't even think that was a thing. Like someone wants to know what's gonna be like the thing, so they define the budget, and I do whatever I can within that budget. Basically, that was always the assumption of the relationship. What I did do, and this is an analogy that I used quite a lot. I told them about Slack versus WhatsApp, right? Because these are, if people came and they some people came prepared. So if they're prepared, they're usually a little savvy, so they know what Slack is, they know what WhatsApp is, right? So then my analogy was like, okay, we can build a chat and it's going to be like WhatsApp. So you can send messages back and forth. And maybe the deeper that we're going to go is having group conversations, right? Or we can have Slack that is integrating to 5,500 applications, that has emojis and GIFs and whatever, and like all kinds of bells and whistles around this. There's built-in AI into it and all of that. So when we say align in the agreement, this can be interpreted in so many different ways, because it's not about the title of the feature, it's about the depth of the feature, right? So like even in our system, we released the support desk. What is a support desk? It's some people will think it's an email inbox. Some people will consider, okay, it needs to have status, urgency. We need to have tagging system. We need to have the ability to white label the whole thing. We need to have the ability to do this, to do that. To send multiple attachments that will be CC based on conditional rules that are coming from the. You know what I mean? So it's not about the title; it's about the depth of the feature. So I would use that analogy a lot between WhatsApp and Slack.
Right.
And just to clarify that that I'm gonna look more towards the WhatsApp, and if it's gonna be something that people like and enjoy, then we can build Slack into it. And this is actually the methodology that we brought into all of the stuff that I've been doing since. We release something, we see if people touch it. We track and we see if there's actions and stuff. If people are using, so for example, we released timers, like a time tracking feature. So initially it was just like a play button that tracks time and you can see the time running. Then we started getting requests about the time feature and people were starting to use this. All right, so let's expand this and create like a place with time entries and filters and reports and whatever, so it's not just a play on the page.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting idea, more than idea, a mythology that you've got here, because I haven't heard it from other so-called experts, really. It's more the traditional model. So I think what you're saying, because the I was going to say the less sophisticated, but that's not true. The large organisation's going to bring a request for a proposal for you. They're going to be talking to at least 2 to 3 agencies at the same time, and they're going to have a request for a proposal document. So they've already worked, or they should have one. Almost always they do, and then their questions are: can you do the job? Have you got the experience? Are you a wacko? Is your agency a wacko? They've got a set of questions. I'm talking more
and
about
eventually, in these scenarios, they will just look at the price at the end of the day, because the person that you're talking to is usually not the person making the decision. The person making the decision is going to be someone on the board.
I think you're right. Price is, but also, can they do the job? Have they got the ability to do the job, right? Because they also, yes, price is important, but they want, somebody, if it's over 100,000, if it's between 100 and 300 or above, somebody who hires you could lose their job.
True.
Right? So they've got an interest that you can do what you're saying you can do, right?
Yeah.
It's the saying in IT, nobody got sacked for hiring IBM, right? All right. Now I'm talking between the 10 to 30,000, and that could be an entrepreneur, that could be a small team, that could be a non-profit. They probably haven't got the experience of build or the ability to build a request for proposal. Sure. And what you've outlined, I think, is quite interesting, because the way I've dealt with, because between that 10 to 30,000 space, I've asked for paid discovery, and then I've always got pushback. It hasn't gone, and I've dealt with it with a bit of humour and using my swag remark, right? And sometimes, a lot of the time, it's worked, and sometimes it hasn't. But I think your model is probably a better one, actually. So I might actually think about it and adapt your model, because with the problems I have with paid discovery, and it really is pushed out by a number of so-called experts out there, is that you always get pushback, don't you?
Yeah. Well, why wouldn't you get pushback? So you're going to someone to fix your car, and they're gonna ask you to pay for like a full checkup of the whole thing, and it's not gonna be $20. You're not gonna charge $20, Jonathan. You're gonna charge 500 or 1,000 if you're already charging for something, right? At least. So why would someone do that? I never really got that. I never really got that. So what I would do if it works for you, man, go for it. If you figured it out, then awesome.
I don't think it's a black and white situation. I think these different concepts have their good points and their bad points, don't they?
But I think that if you go about it and you get pushed back and the swag doesn't work, because I love the swag idea, then you say, all right, cool. If we can't do the thing, let's start small and see and take it from there. We can always.
Yeah, the only concern, I think it's a great thing you've outlined. My only concern is there's a certain type of client. They're built out this, I was going to use the word fantasy, but that would not be fair. They've got their mind around a certain thing they want, and they want it. But on the other hand, you could say to me, if you can't persuade a client that the minimum viable project idea is the way to go, maybe that client isn't the right client, the right fit for you, and you're not the right fit for that client.
For me, it would be a big red flag, because what I always tried to educate my clients on, and again, it's not that they say this and I hang up the phone or something
No.
like that. I would try to educate them and basically teach them from my own experience, and just say that look, we might have hypotheses until tomorrow, but only one thing knows, and that is the market. Until we go out to market, we never know. No one knows, and that is just the truth. No one can say that they know what the market wants until they put it in front of people and they market it properly. That's it. So like that kind of removes a lot of these discussions out of the way, because I don't know. I know how to do what you want, but I don't know if it's the right thing. I believe it's the right thing, or I can propose an alternative. I believe that that is the right thing. But again, the only one that knows is the market. That was my kind of like my saying, and I follow this every day, man. Like with Bertha, you see this in real time. We released it like within 2 months, just to see how people are reacting to it, and then we got market feedback and rebuild another version every week, a new version, to add to it. Now, 4 months in, it's not even close to the product that it started with. It's a lot more refined, it's a lot smarter, and I didn't need to come up with ideas. The market told me what they wanted, and then that's when the sales came in. And the same thing with Atarim. We started with a plugin that took us literally 45 days to build. $500,000 later, that of investment. Now we have like a dashboard, a SaaS platform that is with email support, and all of the bells and whistles that you can imagine for collaborations. But this is all based on real life people that are using the product, thousands of them every single day, and they send messages, dozens every day, that say, it would be cool if we could have done this, and we put this to the side. And then if another person says the same thing, we stack them up. And say, like, all right, we have 250 people that want to ClickUp integration. So just before our call, Jonathan, I was on a conversation with the guys from ClickUp to see what we can do together. But I didn't do it now for 2 years until it became the highest priority of the thing. I could have started with ClickUp from day one. People do integrations from day one. It's
Yeah.
great.
So let's have one more question and then wrap it up. And it was around, I'll just give you around what are some of the biggest mistakes you see, because of your product, because of your Facebook groups, and you have a lot of conversations with different freelancers and web design agencies and WordPress agencies. So what are some of the regular and biggest mistakes that you see a pattern when it comes to the area? What I feel, I'll put this to you, is linked to some of our other workshops last month, is that I think it's down to not having a financial reserve of 6 months to cover your basic costs, right?
So you're always, chasing the money, chasing the buck.
Well, because if you don't have that reserve of 6 months to pay your rent, to pay your living expenses, or to pay, let's say you got some staff on retainers or salaries, unless you have that 6-month fund, you're always tempted to take on clientele that are not a good fit, that you knew from day one there were red flags.
Right.
And I don't think you're doing the client a service. And I think if you do successfully complete the project, they're still, in my experience, not great experiences. They're normally pretty rough. And the signs were there from day one, but because you needed the money, needed to pay that month's rent, or paid that salary to that staff, you took on that project. What's your feeling about what I've just said, and what are some of your own thoughts around some of the biggest mistakes around the subject that you've seen in your community?
So I'm gonna comment on that 6 month fund that you mentioned. I think that's a big mistake to have a 6 month fund
All right.
because the oxygen of business is money, it's cash. So you want to always feed the beast, you know. So if you have 6 months sitting in the bank, it means your profit margins are amazing. So let's do more. Let's hire a few more team members and let's scale the hell out of this thing, you know. And don't not have the 6 months in the bank. So I think that it's not very common that that people have 6 months of leeway for any type of business. You know, unless you get like a um, external money invested into it. But you know, to build a bootstrap business that is going to have a cash reserve of 6 months, that is something fundamentally wrong with your growth plan. You know,
Right.
you want to grow faster. Spend the money, you know, spend it so it can come back to you. But what I would say is, and if we're looking at the point of those projects like 10 to 30K, right? That was your sweet spot that you mentioned. When you're at a place that you're getting the type of clients that are willing to pay 10 to 30K, when you're sending out a proposal of 10,000 to 30,000 and you're not flinching, that's already a great achievement. But it also means that you have a back you already have like a bunch of clients that you worked with, because it doesn't happen overnight. You don't go and start charging 10K. It takes a few years to get to that place. So the clients that you have are the ones that are paying the cash flow. The clients that you're getting are the ones that are going to pay the cash flow for the future employees that you're going to bring on. And so you shouldn't be getting into those debates. That being said, again, stretching the projects to 6 months and having like one payoff in the middle, one in the beginning, one in the middle, one at the end, that's going to break your cash flow, and that might put you into trouble if you have a delay of a month here or delay of a month there. That's really going to put you into a world of pain, with your team members, with your clients, with the bank, with your wife, you know, with everyone around you, with the landlord, you know, so or the mortgage, you know. So that is something that you want to be conscious of. And I'm saying from experience, because I got to that concept of scaling down the project after we were doing 60K, 70K
Yeah.
projects, and it was and the time to get to the benchmark, and you start making mistakes because you just want to,
Yeah.
let's just get it out there, let's get it there.
So I think I'm not being rude by interrupting you, but I
Sure.
think this whole because I think it's been a great conversation. But just to finish off, I think it's because I put more traditional views to you and more traditional concepts that there's a few industry experts that I listen to quite regularly. And what the questions I've put to you that come from the tribe and from myself are more the traditional structures. But I think you've disagreed with me
On everything.
because based on your experience and your total concept of minimum viable project.
Well, it's not only that. Well, that is the solution that I came up with, you know, to those challenges, because I've listened to those things, I read those books, I've been to those talks, you know, I paid the consultants, I bought the courses and went through the courses, and I've gone through these journeys to try and figure these things out for years, and I see people still struggling with the same stuff again and again and again and again. So like, why are you doing the same thing?
Yeah, that's true. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up. Hopefully, please give us some feedback. Join the WP-Tonic Facebook group. I keep renaming it, but I'll get the right name in the end. And give us some feedback on YouTube. Subscribe, give us a thumb up, give us some feedback. It will persuade us to continue these workshops. I think there was some real value in this discussion. Vito's view on this has surprised me, but it's given me a lot to think about around my own agency. Hopefully we'll be back next month, maybe with another discussion. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for